Guys, welcome back in. Three bold takes. Freddie, Chase, and Quinn back giving you some sports, guys. This time is Texas ready for the SEC, man. And you're thinking, Chase, oh my gosh, yes, they are. Yes, they are. I watched a Texas basketball game the other day. And at the end of it, I think the players and a lot of the fans were doing the horns down symbol against the Texas team in the handshake line. Okay, maybe it's not the best sportsmanship. All right, we get it. You played upward, good sportsmanship, right? Oh, okay. But the coach of Texas, I don't know his name, the men's basketball coach, stopped some of the guys in line and said, "Hey, that's disrespectful. Don't do that." Yada yada yada. A grown man stopped college kids, 18 to 22 to 23 years old, and said, "You're being disrespectful." Got his feelings hurt over a horns down symbol. And so that's where this comes from for me. Is I just watched that the Big 12 had it as a thing where you couldn't do it. It was like it was a flag or a penalty for doing the horns down symbol. Now you come to the SEC, there's no pretty laws for you in place as Texas. Horns down is a thing. It will happen. And I know that nasty Alabama student section is going to do it the whole dang game. I can tell you right now. I can tell you there's probably going to be some kids shaved with like their hair, their chest hair is going to be shaved as horns down. I don't know. But is Texas ready? Freddie, do you think Texas is ready to be in the SEC?
Well, on the horns down thing, Texas is soft, man. For getting your feelings hurt about that, like I don't necessarily think they're ready. Okay, let me rephrase that. I think they're ready competition level wise for the SEC. Texas's brand of football is on par. In today's, SEC, I feel like they're probably top 3, 4 team heading into next year in the SEC, maybe even top two. So no real worry there when it comes to the competitiveness of the football team. But do they not realize that the SEC lets Mississippi State ring cowbells during a football game? Like, who gives a rat's behind about this? Like, you should not get upset at this. If anything, you should get upset at 80,000 people ringing cowbells, right? But nobody cares because hey, it's football, it's home field, it's trash talk, it's all that. Like that's part of the game. And so Texas is going to have to understand that when you come into the SEC, we're not bending rules for you just because you're new here. Or we're not going to treat you a certain way because you're this big brand coming into the SEC and we need you. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to learn how the SEC does things, and that includes college basketball. Because I guarantee you that when Texas plays Alabama in basketball, especially the student section of Alabama basketball games get rowdy. They will be the whole game doing this, and there's not a daggum thing they can do about it. So physicality wise, competitive wise, Texas is there and they're ready for the SEC. But I don't think the fans are ready for the SEC. Quinn.
I'll start with this. Basketball and baseball, Texas is more than ready to compete in the SEC. I mean, Texas is arguably going to be a top tier program in both sports while they're in the conference. Arguably more suited for it than most of the teams that are in the conference right now. Not baseball excluded. The SEC runs college baseball, but we're not a baseball, we're not a basketball show. Let's talk football. From a competitive perspective, Texas's football roster is going to be top five for the 2024 season. And will continue to be a top tier team as long as NIL isn't regulated because Texas is going to be able to afford more talent than anyone else. In a regulated league, I'm not entirely sure Texas is ready for the SEC. And it's not because it has nothing to do with their ability to recruit. I mean, they should be easily the best recruiting team in the conference. My concern for Texas when they come to the SEC is if you look at the history of Texas, they ran the Southwest Conference. If you wanted something, it went through Austin. They controlled the conference and they got what they wanted. Same thing when they joined the Big 12. Everything ran through Austin. They got what they wanted. Yet in both conferences, well, not as much the Southwest, but especially in the Big 12, Texas wasn't even second fiddle most seasons. They were usually third or fourth. Um, Oklahoma ran the Big 12, not Texas. Uh, when you come to the SEC, and I know y'all are focusing on the horns down thing, and I think that's an example of what's about to happen. Texas will never have control over the Southeastern Conference. The SEC has always been heavily in favor of like an equal approach for all their teams. There will be no hand over foot giving Austin what they want on a silver platter. That won't happen because if it, like there's too many people bought in for college football programs across the SEC. An Auburn, for example, is one of the 25 biggest fan bases in college football. If the SEC was more aligned with, say, the Big 12, Auburn would be very similar to like Oklahoma State, where Oklahoma runs that state. If you root for a college football team in Oklahoma, it's pretty much Oklahoma, unless you root for Oklahoma State. So, and even then, it's just a small amount. Like, it's not the same as it is in the SEC, where pretty much all the teams, I would say probably Vanderbilt excluded, have a pretty hardcore fan base, which is crazy to think about compared to all the other conferences in college football. So from a perspective of can they compete over the next couple of years, absolutely. I love their coach, I love their talent. Obviously, Georgia's still going to be king, and you got to get over Georgia. But I would say Texas is in the short list. But for the foreseeable, like long term, I worry for Texas because they're used to being able to throw their weight around and get what they want, and I don't think that's going to be a thing they can do in the SEC.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I didn't even think about that, like how the Big 12 wanted to keep not only Texas, but Oklahoma too, but mainly let's look at Texas, for the sake of the video, is keeping them happy, giving them, TV deals, all this kind of stuff, and what you said, hand over foot, and you're just not gonna get that there. There are so many brands. Okay, maybe this is a little wild, but as big as Texas, I'd say definitely for SEC wise. So for them coming into the SEC, they're not that statement brand in the SEC yet. They will be in the next 2 to 3 years, but you got your statement SEC teams, your LSU, your Florida, your Alabama, your Georgia. Yes, I fit Florida in there. And so Texas is going to have to work into that. But I'm going to focus on what Fred said, the fans, man. I do not think the fans are going to be ready at all. I think they'll travel well, and I think they'll do a lot of things right, but I think they will definitely be expecting the handover footness as they got in the Big 12, expecting SEC to kind of bend the rules. I definitely think if not midway through the season, definitely in the next off season, they are calling legislature to say, hey, horns down thing needs to be a penalty from now on. I definitely think that's going to be a thing midway through to the off season. So I don't think the fans are ready for the intensity of the SEC because let's look at it. Big 12, it's kind of a teetering. They got a lot of good football programs, but they're a good portion of them are also basketball schools, baseball schools, right? And so football, they're like, the fans aren't super hyped up about it. Oh, we're gonna play Texas, most likely gonna lose. But in SEC, football is life. Football is everything. Okay, basketball is good. All right, I don't care. Football's it. So your LSU's, your Auburn's, your Alabama, your Georgia, your Ole Miss, your Mississippi State, everybody. These kids are gonna go crazy whether they're 4-8 or 10-2. And they're gonna make you understand that they absolutely hate you in every regard. So I think Texas fans need to understand that coming in when they travel, when they do these things, it's going to be really, really intense. And Texas has to hear that out from the get go. So
Also, between Texas and Oklahoma, and we'll get to the Oklahoma side of things, but Texas's schedule is very favorable for them next year in SEC play. Now, they do play Michigan as a non-con game. That's kind of electric week 2 of the year. But yeah, I mean, their toughest game in the SEC is Georgia at home. The next toughest is probably either at Texas A&M or the game against Oklahoma. But that's literally it. Florida's a dumpster fire. Arkansas is on the brink of firing coaches. Kentucky's not going to be that great. So they
Hold
can
on, where
come
do they
in.
play? Where do they play Arkansas?
It's at Arkansas.
I know this sounds crazy.
Don't even
Don't
say it.
sleep on it. No, no, no. I'm serious. Don't sleep on it. You're talking about in terms of like hostile environments. Team wise, Texas is going to be much better than them. Hostile environment wise, and I haven't seen how their schedule lines up, but if you're coming off, say, the Georgia games the week before, you're coming off a series of tough games, that crowd's going to be nuts for the Texas game. Like insane. It might be the most hostile environment Arkansas has all season. You're talking about an old rivalry. They had no business beating, in my opinion, they had no business beating Texas 2 years ago, and they slaughtered them because the game was in Arkansas. So
Hey, we'll
I-
see.
I'm I'm
And
saying it's not just like a cakewalk game like you think it might be. Just looking at rosters.
yeah, I mean they do have a thick SEC schedule. I mean, right in the midst of it, you got Georgia, and in between that and Florida, you got at Vandy. I mean, just a tough schedule for Texas right there in the middle, going to Nashville and having to play Vandy on their home turf, guys. Woof, woof. Feel for Texas. Feel for Texas. But guys, if you guys don't have anything else, man, we're talking Texas. We're talking horns downs here. Seeing how fans, do you think Texas fans are going to be able to make it in the SEC? Let us know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe for Chase, Freddie, and Quinn. We're out of here.